Hey, deserving listeners, Vanderpump Rules, Pumped Up Edition. Let's watch.
You are still in love.
Not much of a enthusiastic head nod, so I don't know how to interpret that. Is she refraining from being fully honest because she knows it's probably not a good idea to be enthusiastic about this answer in front of Ariana? It's just going to be hurtful. Is it shame? Or is it hesitancy because she doesn't know if she's really in love with Tom? I could see a world in which behind closed doors, she's like, I don't know how I feel about Tom. Tom was I think a means to an end. I think I just wanted freedom. I wanted a safe place to get support where someone actually seemingly valued me. I don't get a lot of that, but I don't know if I'm in love with him. I don't know.
You are in love.
Sorry, I'm gonna laugh. This is delusional. This is hilarious and delusional.
It's a very simple question. Are you in love or are you not?
There's been a fair amount of this as well, where Tom just silently stares at Andy instead of answering a question. He's done this before, and I think normally in these shows they would edit out all the silence, but they leave it in on the show because it's a dramatic tension. And I think Tom has this strategy of I don't want to lie, but I also don't want to answer the question, and I want to signal to everyone that, okay, if you're going to force me to answer, I'm going to show you in maybe the only way I know how to do this, by communicating my discomfort through silence. And that kind of fits with my hypothesis about his issues. There's so many other options. He could be like, okay, well, I'd love to answer that question and it's complicated, but I don't want to answer that question from Ariana because I feel like whatever I say, it's going to hurt her. You could say something like that. Or you could say, well, I certainly felt like I am in love with her, but I don't know. It's an affair, so it's hard to know anything. There's a lot of different things other than just staring blankly and silently at Andy.
I was cringing so hard.
But what about at the time?
You should be cringing
every fucking second of your life until the day you die.
When you looked her in the eyes, this person that has loved you and defended you. I feel like a piece of shit.
You felt nothing. You felt nothing, and you feel nothing.
Okay, I wonder what that means. She could be lying. She could be playing it up for the cameras. If Raquel comes across like this person who hates herself, maybe she'll get some sympathy from the internet or something. But I wonder if it's something else, what she's saying here, that she feels like a piece of crap. So does she generally feel that way? That'd be a question I've asked. Like, have you felt this before? Is this a theme in your life? Did people treat you this way? Another possibility along these lines is, so there's this thing called schema therapy. It's a theory that I enjoy. I find it to be very useful. Not specifically every element of the theory, but the main premise, in that the way that we're treated, or the way our world is when we're young, we will learn to believe that that's the way that things are. So, for example, if you are in a family with abusive parents and they are treating you like you are a piece of crap, and at first you're thinking, well, I don't feel like I'm a piece of crap. This is kind of a subconscious when you're 1, 2, 3 years old. But eventually you are faced with a conundrum of like, well, but the world is treating me like I'm a piece of crap, so I must be a piece of crap. And this is subconscious as well. And you just adopt this belief like, okay, I am a piece of crap. Baseline. It has nothing to do with my parents. No matter who raised me, this is how things would go because I deserve it. And when you are older, you might consciously understand. So you adopt that belief, that schema. And when you're older, you might think, well, that doesn't make sense. That's not fair. But deep down, you still believe it to be true about you. That's the insidious nature of mistreatment as children. But sometimes it can be circumstantial, like if you have parents that are struggling with mental illness or with addiction or with health issues, or your family is a refugee family from a war-torn area, then that can also cause a lot of parenting challenges where children are in a situation where they have to reckon with being mistreated. They might even consciously understand at the age of 4 that it doesn't have anything to do with them consciously, but it feels like it has to do with them. We're not logical animals. So the child will also potentially adopt that point of view. There's a lot of other schemas that one can develop under those circumstances, but one of which is, I'm a piece of crap. And I've seen this a lot. I'm sure some of you might have this schema. You might know people with this schema. So it just persists. Even when people are treating you well, or at the very least, they're not treating you like a piece of crap, you just walk around like, well, but I am. So there are 3 different styles of coping with that pain, because it's painful to believe that you're a piece of crap, right? So you can surrender to the idea and say, well, it is what it is, and there's no use fighting it, and I might as well just lean into it and just accept it. I'll act like a piece of crap. I will behave like a piece of crap. I will be with people who tend to see everyone as a piece of crap, and so they're more likely to see me as a piece of crap. I will sabotage my life. I might even provoke other people to make sure that they see me as a piece of crap, because I surrender. It just is what it is. There's no use fighting. So I'm going to act like a piece of crap. I'm going to be around people who see me that way. I'm not going to push back on it. And you could argue, if that is the case for Raquel, which I don't really have a lot of data on, but she could even have self-sabotage herself because she's on a reality TV show, and right, because it's not just an affair, right? You could argue most of the fallout from the affair, it has nothing to do with who's on stage. It has to do with the world. It has to do with the viewership and real horrible consequences to your career, to online bullying, to everything. So it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine that if this is somewhere close to the mark, that a very effective way to confirm that you are a piece of crap is to have an affair with Tom and to have it come out and to let it linger for as long as you can. Anyway, so that's one style of surrender. Another is to avoid, and the avoidance possibilities with the schema of I'm a piece of crap is to maybe avoid relationships, maybe avoid situations where the question of your character is not at play, something like that. It's just like, I'm just going to avoid any situation where the question as to whether I'm a piece of crap or not, I'm just going to avoid that whole thing. Maybe by being a pleaser, that'd be one method. And then, and people can have combinations of these 3, but they generally have themes, or at least tendencies in certain circumstances. And then the third coping to schemas is what they call overcompensation. So one way, and she doesn't exhibit any of this. If you're watching Ultimatum with me, there's a possibility that Vanessa actually has this, but anyway, is the overcompensation type, where the individual will say, not only am I not a piece of crap, but everyone else is a piece of crap, and I'm better than everyone else, and I'm perfect, and I'm awesome. And so they will become very competent at things. They will strive to be competent, and then they will signal that they're competent, that they're better, that they're above it, or that they're special, and they might put other people down as a way of making sure by comparison they're never a piece of crap. But deep down, they believe they're a piece of crap. So I wonder if for Raquel, there's something going on there. There seem to be some signs. It's also possible that she's just saying that because she's like, because it would be a good move. Like if I were in Raquel's shoes, which would be bizarre, I might say something like that of just like, you're right to be angry at me. And everyone has the right to be angry at me. And even though there's a baseline of, I know I'm not a piece of crap really, but in a way of looking at it, I am. I mean, look at what I did. But I'm not gonna take it home seriously and say, yes, I am a piece of crap. But I should just kind of agree with their point of view because I get it. And maybe if I do that, then eventually they'll at least I'm giving them this gift of saying, I agree with you. There is something wrong with me, even though deep down I know there's not something like that wrong with me, at least not as far as they're saying it.
Talking to her at that moment that's on camera. To me, that's the most mind-boggling, gobsmacking, astounding piece of film I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is interesting. The clips that they're showing, y'all probably saw those things as they happened during the season. I didn't. So it is shocking. And it must have been quite a thing to watch the past season, knowing of the affair and just watching this all play out. It really just must have built the tension, right? Oh my God. I mean, whoa, did she just say that? all that, and of course the show has a lot of footage, and they highlight probably the bits that were the most relevant to that storyline. But yeah, it does add, and it does make Raquel look a lot worse. In terms of what I've watched, the last episode of the season and the reunions, Raquel, compared to Tom especially, is exhibiting a lot of empathy, at least showing remorse. I don't know if she has it, taking the high road in a lot of instances. We could talk about the restraining order as to whether or not that was warranted or vindictive or something, but she came around, she's like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get rid of it. That's right. Anyway, so I've seen a lot of at least the good side, given the circumstances of Raquel, but y'all might have a lot more, because they show these clips, it's like, oof. Because there's a lot of things, if you're Raquel, that you could have done, right? It's one thing to have the affair, which is awful. It's another thing to knowingly take actions on camera with Ariana, knowing what you know, right? You'd think you would just like, well, I shouldn't say that because that, once this comes out, but you can see maybe she just never thought it would come out. But anyway, it does make Raquel look like she has more issues. That I don't know, but the way it kind of looks to me when I see these clips of Raquel and a lot of the folks on the show is, their job is to be on a reality TV show. They get paid for it. Their careers are based on it. Presumably they set out to do this sort of thing. Raquel is being accused of being a fangirl and weaseling her way on the show. So, they want to be on the show, and because if suddenly I was forced into a reality TV show, I probably wouldn't do much on camera. I'd be like, well, I'm just going to be quiet because anything I do is going to be highlighted. So I'm not doing shit. But for the people on the show, I think they lean into it because that's what they want. And they also know that if they don't do anything, that they won't be on the show anymore. So the way it looks to me, and tell me, because obviously y'all have seen Raquel for a long time, at least it seemingly has a theme that Raquel is playing a part, that she knows that the show or the producers and maybe even the fellow cast members want Raquel to mix it up and say things and have opinions and maybe say some provocative things. And the way it looks to me, given especially what I've seen post being discovered, it doesn't look as genuine as it does for some of the other cast members. Like she said, well, okay, I'm supposed to say something provocative, so I'll do that. I don't know. Y'all would know a lot more than I would.
I mean, look, I think that neither one of us have really had time to really process this. We made a mistake. We tried to rectify and pretend like it didn't happen. We didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, I hope you hear the difference between what Tom is saying and what Raquel is saying. Mistake. We didn't want to hurt anybody. Raquel doesn't say stuff like that. Tom is still in that mode of, but I'm a good person, and it all makes sense if you knew how bad Ariana was, or something like that. And I'm guessing everyone's going to yell at Tom.
So that's what we both, I think, tried to do.
Ariana, what happened with your eggs?
Ariana wants me to fertilize.
Maybe they're just done yelling at Tom. They've already yelled at Tom sufficiently. I also think that there was a general rule established, and maybe even off-camera conversations, where they're like, you have to stop engaging with Tom, because if you do it every single time, because we're going to be here for several days recording, and we don't want to do that. It's not helpful that you just start barking at him. So I wonder if they're not doing it because of that. And then when Raquel comes on, they're just like, okay, now we have license to yell at someone again.
What about that girl in Chicago? What about the girl after the bar after you played on a Thursday night?
You guys, where are you getting your information?
Well, no, you know who he did sleep with after him and Raquel started sleeping together? Me.
She kept her t-shirt on. It was really hot.
You're such a fucking dick.
What the
Oh, wow. Why say that? What's the reason? Yeesh. So he's saying, well, okay, so he's in a mode of self-justification. And I think he's been in that seemingly distorted mode. I don't know. I mean, not regarding the sex thing, of course, but there's a world in which Tom is just a very bad narrator of reality. And there's a world in which Ariana is abusive verbally or emotionally or something. It doesn't look like that, but I'll hold out for that possibility. I can't know. But let's assume that that's not the case, at least to the extent that he's claiming. And so he's in this mode of self-justification. He's been in that mode for a long time. I suspect that even prior to being with Raquel, he's been in this mode for years, potentially, where he feels put upon, he feels victimized, he feels justifiably rageful and angry and resentful. And it's based on a distortion based on his early childhood where he was harmed, but he now applies that to everybody. And he is saying, so in this moment, she's like, well, yeah, I mean, we had sex after that moment that he cheated on me. And for Tom, he is like, uh-oh, my main justification for cheating on Ariana is now being threatened because Ariana's pointing out that we did have sex. And maybe even I told Raquel that we never had sex, and now she's claiming it. And so I can't have that. That's the only justification I have, or that's the main justification I have. And I believe that to be a good justification. It's not a good justification, as we've been over so many times, and everyone else agrees. I don't know anyone who would say that it's justified, but to him it's justified. And so based on that foundation, he believes, okay, I have to somehow tear that down because that's my justification. And so I will say, well, okay, yeah, fine, we had sex, but you weren't sexy during it, or you weren't into it, or you weren't putting effort. It wasn't pleasurable. It wasn't good or something. And it was disgusting. I don't know what he's saying, but yeah. So I wonder about Tom's sophistication. I've said this before, but I do wonder about Tom's sophistication when it comes to seeing the bigger picture and understanding how the world works exactly. I've said this about Raquel, that if I didn't know better, the way Raquel talks, it's that of a teenager, that of someone who's inexperienced and is kind of dazzled with the world. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And Tom has a different version of that lack of sophistication, this inability to kind of put two and two together, right? Because it's one thing to have that justification in your head. It's nothing to voice it. And in this moment, right? Now, there's another way he could have said this, right? He could have said, yeah, we did have sex, but I kind of felt like you weren't into it. And so it wasn't like it was this wonderful experience. There's a different way to say it other than, yeah, and you kept your T-shirt on. Jiminy crickets.
If this was something that was
ahead of time.
I'm just filling you guys in if you're curious. We were trying to figure out if this was like something just exciting and superficial, or if there was something like deeper happening. Well, if it was exciting and superficial, that came at great expense. I admit that, and I'm sorry, Ariana.
I don't accept.
Okay, so I'm often looking for those explicit indications. It seemed obvious that she wasn't accepting of the apology, but it was explicitly stated and explicitly rejected, and that makes sense given what's happening. It also would make sense given the circumstances. I can't imagine a lot of people in Ariana's shoes, regardless of how good someone's apology was from Raquel's side, that someone in Ariana's shoes would accept the apology at this phase. Is it possible that that's in the future of acceptance and forgiveness, which are very complicated things? And you can listen to my deep dive on apology and the research on apology and my conceptualization of apology and forgiveness. There's a lot of research on forgiveness and what it means and how it can be elicited from someone and the pathway to forgiveness. And might it be in the future? It might be. It's not inconceivable. It seems inconceivable in the moment, but it's not. I've worked with clients along these lines. Sometimes people will come to me in situations like this where they're not related, but they are trying to repair their friendship, and it might be months or years of therapy to work on things, but it's possible. But Ariana would have to want to, and she might not want to. She might just be like, no, I'm done, and I don't want to engage. I'm not going to go there in my mind, because forgiveness is a process. It's not, sometimes the process takes very little time. If I'm in the grocery store and someone bumps into me and they say, I'm sorry, and I might not say I forgive you, but I might forgive them in my head. I'd be, oh, it's okay, and I'm indicating forgiveness. So the process of forgiveness might literally be half a second, but for bigger transgressions, the forgiveness process takes a long time. Could take years, a lifetime maybe. And for the forgiveness process is a voluntary action and a voluntary process that the transgressed upon person will engage in. It depends on definition of forgiveness, but in terms of the general definition where you actually release the negative associations or feelings you have about the person and the transgression itself. You don't forget it, but you forgive it, and you're basically saying in this situation that I understand why you did it. I'm not going to forget it. I don't think it's right what you did, Raquel, and I'm still hurt by it. But I feel like you've sufficiently demonstrated that you're remorseful. You've done a lot of things to make up for it. That's another part of proper apologies, is to, at least offer remedy, right? Like, how can I make it up to you? Or could I do this for you? Or is there something that I can, and sometimes from the Raquel side, it's not like any sort of favor that you can provide, but, like picking them up from the airport a few times or something. But it would be something like, I'm going to remedy the situation by showing to you how sorry I am, and by showing you how much I care about your feelings and about our friendship. I'm going to continue to try to do that. And I'll give you a gift of not defending myself when you attack me, even though I'm not fully on board with what you're saying, but I'm going to allow you that because I understand where you're coming from. There's a lot of remedy that one can provide, but Ariana would have to be up for that. She would have to allow that to happen. And even then, in addition to that, Ariana would have to make a choice of, I'm going to begin the forgiveness process. I don't forgive you yet, but I'm going to begin that in my soul, in my heart, in my mind. And a part of that is us interacting and you apologizing more and telling me what the hell happened, or going to therapy or something like that. So, there is that in their future. It could be.
I don't believe you for one fucking second.
I understand. My credibility is shot.
Yeah.
I mean, among other things.
But what did you think? What was your position on all of this?
Just more, I think, I don't know, what do I say? Constructive, at least, behavior from Raquel. And I think she believes it. She seems like she's lost. She seemed like she was lost while she was having the affair. Doesn't excuse it at all, but I think she is. I don't know. I didn't react to this, I don't think, but Ariana was crying and talking about how it was really hard for her. It was really good for her to have friends, and she mentioned that she said something like, I needed to be babysat. And at first I thought, well, what does that mean? But I wonder if that actually has to do with suicide, that she didn't trust herself, or some other kind of self-destructive behavior, over drinking, or I don't know. So I wonder what that meant exactly, which would make total sense. I mean, it's rough. And I commend Ariana for modeling that to people, that she was able to be vulnerable in this scenario, right? Because that's the foundation of this all. It's pain. All the anger that she's exhibiting, it comes from the pain. All of the hostility and the name calling, it comes from pain. And that pain is justified. The anger is justified. It all makes sense. There's a line in terms of how hostile and mean you can be to someone, but it'd be tempting for someone in Ariana's shoes on a show like this to say, you know what, I never cared about him anyway. I'm done with Tom, and he's behind. He's old news, and to act like you're above it. But Ariana is really exhibiting, and has, in all the footage I've seen, the reality and the vulnerability and the pain and the emotionality and just the humanity of what it is to be transgressed upon in that way.
A lot. Okay.
Thanks.
That was brutal.
You handled it a lot better than I did.
It's hard to like admit to everything, and when everything's laid out in front of you, like everything that we've done and how we've hurt so many people.
Yeah, it doesn't make it okay. It was wrong on 1,000 levels. But if it did happen and you did do something like this and you are now faced with it, this is what you would hope would happen. Remorse and being overwhelmed and realizing who you are and what you did, which she's exhibiting, and the sadness and the pain that she's feeling. I'll remind people, which I don't need to do, but if there's anyone out there that is in these shoes having an affair right now or has done something along these lines, lied, deceived, embezzled, whatever it is, denial is rough and destructive. And when we face things and deal with the reality of things, so many things are facilitated. You can avoid situations like, there's so many other things that they could have done. And if they just would have faced it and just said, whoa, and it probably goes back further than them even getting together that first time. There were probably a lot of things they were ignoring, the two of them. And there are ways to address it, particularly when you have the means to go to therapy and to talk with people to get support. Deceiving, lying, cheating is just not okay. They taught us that in kindergarten. They probably taught us that a lot in preschool. It's fundamental. And I'll do my monthly mini rant here that this is old man shakes fist at society, but it seems to me that lying and deception is becoming more normalized. Not completely, of course. It's ridiculous to think that, but there's an excusing of lying. There'll be a documentary that will come out, and there will be just blatant lies that are proposed in the documentary, and people just roll with it. They're like, well, you can't tell or they'll have a movie that is based on a true story, and they will change major details of the story because it's clear that they want to tell a story that's different from reality. Well, fine, that's what fiction is for. Write fiction. Don't write a true story and just straight up lie, and then people just eat it up, or when they find out that it was a lie, they're just like, well, what are you going to do? And it's just politicians have always lied. You go back to the founding fathers, they were just as horrible, arguably worse. I mean, they literally would shoot each other. So it's not like politicians are different today, but it's in your face more because it's constantly in the news, and just all the deception and lying, and then you have news organizations that are just obviously straight up lying, and then these texts come out that are demonstrating that they know they're lying, that they know they're deceiving the public, and you watch democracy threatened, and so again, old man shakes fist. Yeah, there's things, there are constants. There are constants in human society that are seemingly worse now, that have been around for a long time, and maybe even worse in the past. So I'm not. But I don't know. It just feels like there's a general drift into deception and lying. Like with social media, people put forward a persona, and it's like, well, that's what you do. It's just, and people are born essentially into that mentality and that excusing. And you might even find that if you are honest on social media, people are like, we don't want to know honesty. That's too much honesty. Like TMI, let it go. And, maybe there's something to say there, but I just wonder about all of the, and again, it's not like cheating is new. So there's that, but I just, what am I saying? I worry much more about the future of our society when it comes to loneliness and capitalism and the income disparity and the lack of taxes being allocated for government programs and for actually enforcing regulations that need to be on corporations and factories regarding the environment, regarding labor, regarding all sorts of things. I do worry about that. I worry much less about this issue, but I still worry about it. The future of our society when it comes to deceiving, when it comes to lying. And then never mind where we're headed with AI and with deep fakes and all that kind of. I am terrified of the day, and it will happen, where someone figures out a way to fabricate my voice and my face. There is enough data on YouTube, and you probably only need 5 minutes of a clip to sufficient, particularly in the future, to have me say and do anything and give it. And right now it's kind of obvious that it's AI, but 5 years from now, maybe longer, anyone can just make me say or do anything, right? And so not only for me, but everyone else, like the drift and the heading into deception and the inability to trust and the inability to know what's real and what's not, it's frightening. I don't know. So what triggered me is that she seems to have a good heart. I don't know, but she seems to. I don't know about Tom. I imagine Tom has a good heart, but I think he's underdeveloped regarding his big picture analysis abilities. For her, she is very quickly grasping the situation. She's like, oh my God. And she seemed to be that way right away when Tom goes over to her place, and she just seems like stunned, whereas he's like, hey, how's it going? He just seems kind of relaxed about the whole thing. So she grasped it, and so I suspect that she has a very relatable heart to myself. It's like, yeah, okay, I relate to Tom when he talks. She talks. I'm like, yeah, this is how you should be feeling. This is how I would feel. And yet she did what she did. Yet she lied. She deceived. She leaned into activities that were really awful. She didn't just hang back. She leaned into things that are now making her look even worse. How did that happen? And every day, every minute of every day, she, as it popped into her head, she's like, I make the decision to lie. I make the decision to deceive. I make the decision to deny what's really happening. I make the decision to be selfish. I make the decision that everything's okay and I'll be fine. And that mentality is so present in so many venues and so many situations in life, whether it's this or in politics or the news or at work. There's just so many scenarios where this happens, where people just feel very comfortable with deceiving and lying. People who have empathy, people who have morality, just feel like, yeah, what are you going to do? Everyone lies. It's just a normal thing. And it's upsetting, is it not? All right, well, if you didn't know, we have merch, link below, t-shirts, mugs. Also, I'm on Cameo if you want a birthday or anniversary or, I don't know, congratulations for yourself or someone else, So sometimes I like it when people do cameos for themselves, because usually it's expected that you gift a cameo, but why not just get a cameo for you? There's nothing wrong with that. Or a pep talk. I can't give therapy over Cameo, of course, but I can give a general 1-minute pep talk about something. Usually try to sing a little song. That was a terrible chord. That's a better one. Or on my guitar or something. I don't usually like to bore people. Just play like 5 seconds of something. So if you want me to write you a little song, I will. So write a song about this. Yeah, I'll do it, because it won't be a great song, but it'll be a song. So everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. Truly, you really, really do.